Hi, I'm Jackie Rabbit. I want to talk to you today about the things I wish I could go back in time and talk to myself about before I started transition. What I wish I knew before I started transition. Let's go through those details. There's so many things I wish I could say to myself, but maybe I can say them to you. So let's go discuss that. But first, go give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and click the bell so you know when I post a new video. Let's go talk about what I wish I knew before. Come on, let's go talk about it. So there are lots of things that I wish I had known or been able to send messages to myself about before I started transition. Things that are actually very important that would have helped me so much, but I want to pass those things along to you. They aren't really big, massive things. They're kind of simple, actually. There are things that you find out as you go along, and things that you worry about in the beginning that you realize later weren't as important as you thought. So I suppose if I could go back in time and talk to myself, I would go back pretty early to when I was a teenager, and I would tell myself, there's nothing wrong with you. You're perfectly fine. This is who you are, and there's no reason to be ashamed. You don't have to live in hiding or secret. You are your own unique person, and you don't have to live in fear. So the first thing I would tell myself is don't live in fear. And don't let fear control your life and make your decisions for you. Some of the things I really wish I could go back and change were how much fear affected me and the decisions that I made. Many years went by where I kept seeking escape routes. And unfortunately, that led to a long life of denial. The second thing that worked for me, the most important component, was getting a therapist. So if I could go back to the more recent future, if I was transitioning just as I had in current time, I would go back and demand I seek professional therapy far sooner than I did. If I could go back into my late past, I would tell myself to open up and to be honest and don't hold anything back. Also, I would make sure that I wasn't adding things that didn't exist, to be just truthfully honest, completely 100%. If I could go back again to when I was a teenager, I would simply tell myself, ask for help. Find a therapist. Ask for help finding a therapist. And that would have made a monster difference in my young life had I been able to accept who I was and figure out how to move forward from there. It's difficult. We don't get to live in the rearview mirror because you can't go forward that way, right? At the same time, hindsight's 20/20. We can make all these great decisions afterwards, but have no way to go back and change our path from the beginning. So working with what you have today is the most important part of what you're going to do. But you can make drastic changes in the way that you operate today, right now, that will affect your future. So telling yourself these messages right at this moment could be the most important thing that you could do today. Things that I'm constantly working on and reinforcing with myself come with my own excuses on a regular basis. I would tell myself, don't make excuses. Don't waste a day. Do what you need to do. One of the most important things I've heard along the way, and this is absolutely true, is that if you have problems in your life before transition, they're not going to go away after transition. If your life has messes, clean them up. Clean them up now, before they become a mess after transition. And we all know how entropy works. The messes just get bigger. One of mine was doing my taxes on time, and I've always struggled. I've always managed to get it done at some point, but sometimes they're late. And I just keep going forward and moving in that direction. So for me, I have a bit of avoidance. It's kind of a vicious circle. My life gets kind of cluttered up, and then I just kind of avoid it. and it becomes a bigger problem, which adds to the clutter of my life, and I kind of avoid it, and on and on and on. But that's not what you want to do. If you're entering transition, this is time to clean stuff up before you need to. If you've got taxes to do, just get them done. Work on them a little tiny piece at a day if that's what you have to do. In my case, getting things done in micro chunks really works for me. I just tackle a small thing every single day until eventually it's accomplished. Maybe that's all you need to do, is just tackle them, small things, every single day until you get them done. Putting off or avoiding things during transition just because you think they're going to get solved or you feel like you need to focus entirely on your transition will not serve you well when all is said and done. I'm nearing the stages of late transition, and my problems are still there, but I am working daily to get them accomplished. I'm increasing every little portion by a small step every day, just like you do with transition. So cleaning up those messes along the way is another message I would send back to myself. Don't hesitate. Take care of the problems today because they were only going to be bigger tomorrow. And don't exercise avoidance. If you have to, exercise micro chunks and just nibble away at these things consistently until they're gone, even if it takes a while. One of the things that really horrified me early on in transition was the fear of living full-time. And I know that's a big deal. I look back on it now and it seems like a nothing. I realize now I got through it and it was temporary. So one of the things I wish I knew before I started transition was just the solid piece of knowing this is simply temporary. It's something you do now that you move through and you'll be okay on the other side. It's not forever. You do move through life and you do change, and that's how life works. Part of this is transition for us, and the big component in the beginning is going full-time and being out in the world and being visible. We know we're visible to a degree, but we often over worry. We think that we're much more visible than we truly are. I do know this one thing. If you don't act like the deer in the headlights and you just go about your business, you won't be noticed anywhere near as much. These days, almost everyone wears a face mask. So my biggest worry back then, facial hair and a shadow, were the biggest things I worried about. Now it's not even that big of a deal. And at my level of electrolysis, I'm getting near done. I don't shave anymore at all. And it's not that much, you know. Eventually, it'll just be 15-minute visits, you know, once a month, and it'll be all over. So getting very close there, but in the initial stages of transition, that was my biggest worry. That facial hair really put me out there, and if anyone really looked at me closely, well, then they knew. And I felt so compelled to explain. And this is something else I would tell myself. I wish I'd known not to out myself every time I thought somebody knew. You don't have to explain anything to anyone. You simply don't owe them any explanation. You may feel like you're visible, and it requires an explanation at every turn for everyone you meet. But I'll tell you right now, number one, they probably don't realize they're not paying attention. They're putting your groceries in a bag and trying to charge your credit card. They're doing whatever task it is they're doing while they meet you out in the world. And I wouldn't worry nearly as much. It was wasted worry on myself, and I would go back in time and tell myself, stop explaining to everyone that you're trans and why and your backstory. It's unnecessary. Go out, live your life, be you, and don't explain and don't apologize. That's something else I would go back in time. Stop apologizing, Jackie. You don't owe everyone an apology because you are yourself, that you are living your authentic life and moving forward in your life during transition. There's no apology for that. You're doing a positive thing for yourself, and you don't have to apologize. So that is something else I wish I'd known. I don't have to apologize for everything and my transition every time I turn around and believe I owe them an explanation. one of the things I would love to go back in time and tell myself is don't hesitate. Don't wait. Do what you need to do and don't waste any time doing it. Don't put roadblocks in front of yourself. When I am this much, I will do that. When I reach this milestone, I will achieve that. When I've achieved that, I will move on to this. You're just slowing yourself down. That's what I did. I slowed myself down unnecessarily with these pre-thought out reasons for why and when. If I could go back in time, I would tell myself, don't waste any moments of your life. Life is short enough. Take your opportunity now. Don't hesitate. The other thing I wish I could go back is to tell myself, when it comes to your loved ones and your family and your friends, while you do need to be honest with them, that's almost the extent of it. You owe them honesty and truth at the very most. You don't have to tell everyone everything. And you don't certainly need them to agree for you to move forward, or you even need to have them agree with you or your viewpoint in order to continue on with your life, with or without them in it. Using people as the stopgap roadblock to kind of slow myself down was a mistake that I made. People will have their own opinions, and they're perfectly fine. People can have opinions. There's nothing wrong with them. I don't need them to agree with me. Although for some reason, I felt compelled to try to get them to agree that transition was right for me. Unnecessarily. I didn't need to do that at all. So I wish I'd known there was no reason for me to get people to agree with me about my own transition, about my own need for self-motivation, self-change, and improvement. I look back at all this now and I realized those who have stayed have stayed. Those who have moved on have moved on. Those who don't like it, I don't even see them anymore. And it doesn't matter. They're welcome to their opinions, and there's nothing wrong with it. I spent way too much time trying to convince everyone that it was right for me to move on through transition. Things aren't always going to be smooth. And sometimes the best path to where you want to go is bumpy and uphill, in the snow, in the freezing rain. So just do it. Do what you need to do and move through. Don't let things stop you or slow you down. And again, if I could go back in time to my early 17-year-old self, I would say right to my own face, you need to do what you need to do for you. Stop worrying about everyone else's opinion. Your opinion matters. You don't need the opinions of others to be validated. And I spent so much of my time worrying what everyone else was going to think, what they thought, and what they wanted me to do. I spent too much of my life people-pleasing, and it got me nowhere. You have to learn somewhere in your life to grow up and to be politely assertive, and I'm still in that process. I wish I'd also told myself, early on, you're very impressionable through transition, and I found this out along the way. For some reason, I became incredibly impressionable in the early stages of transition. Going to group and hanging out with the girls at group was an experience I'd never had before. Some of them were just like cisgender females, and I felt like I gravitated towards them. Some of them were quite different and flamboyant, and while they were kind of exciting individuals, they were having a bad effect on me. And I started picking up some of their language, mannerisms, and flamboyance early on. That is not who I wanted to be. In fact, a very good friend of mine sat me down and said, I've noticed this change in your personality, and it's rather flamboyant. Now, if that's the kind of woman you want to be, well, then by all means, be that woman. But if it's not, examine yourself and make changes. Otherwise, going through this period may change your personality in a way you aren't really wanting. And she was right. It wasn't something I was wanting and not something I was seeing. In fact, I was so impressionable in the beginning that talking to a friend from Arkansas on a regular basis on the phone somehow started sticking a Southern accent in my voice. I'd been going through vocal training, and somehow hearing that voice on a regular basis was forcing a Southern accent into my speech patterns. That's not what I wanted at all. And in fact, in old videos, I'm mentioning this like I can't figure out why it's happening. I was very impressionable in the beginning. So make sure that you are surrounded by the right people. My advice, if you are like me and your goal is to be the female version of yourself, as close to the cisgender female version that you would have been, then surround yourself with cisgender female friends. That will be your world. That is who the female associates with. And they're very nurturing. You should be able to find people who are very caring and have all the qualities that you want in yourself. Observe the group, but hone in on the particular good graces of some, the intelligence of others, the nurturing aspect of another, and take from those observations what you want to shape yourself. And in the process, you may find one of them will be willing to be very honest with you. And if so, you might invite them into a soft mentor role where they will provide you some positive feedback about how things are happening for you. And if you're brave enough, you can ask for constructive criticism and realize that you need to take it for what it is. And if they will offer it, that's a rare individual who's willing to help you grow and thrive. Those are the things I wish I knew, and I'm sure I could expand upon them and talk all day. But I wish there were things I knew before I started. Don't be scared. Move forward. Surround yourself with the right people because you are very impressionable through the beginning stages. And certainly, life is short. Move with assurance that you're doing the things you need to for you. You don't have to people please. You don't have to have everyone agree with you to move on with what you need for you. You simply have to be honest and let them know, this is the truth. This is my life. This is my plan. And let them make their own decisions. Just be as friendly and wonderful and warm as you can be. Invite them into your life to stay by being the kindest person and the best friend you know how to be. That's the best I can hope for any of you and the best I can hope for myself in an ongoing process of personal improvement. Know that I really do care that you get through this transition, that you know it's not a forever thing, that it is temporary through the uncomfortable phases, but you're going to do just fine. As you start moving through them, you do lose the fear. You do lose the roadblocks in front of you as you let things roll. Once you become more comfortable, you get a pace that works for you. And if you could go back in time, you might tell yourself, this pace is comfortable. Stop going so slow. Don't ask for permission. Do what you need to for you. Take care of yourself. And remember, if you need more information about this, about people who've been through the process, people who will listen to you, and people who will give you constructive criticism, if you ask, is at transgenderpulse.com. Fantastic moderators and members will be willing to listen and offer guidance where they seem to think it's prudent. That's where I started, and that's how I recommend everyone find somewhere to have a place to talk. Take care of yourself. We'll see you next time. Bye. So when I got here at my friend's place, there was a little cat that was a stray, and her name was Annie. And eventually I started feeding Annie on my deck, and she would come every single morning and wait for her food. And every night when I got home, she'd be up on the deck waiting for me to come home, put water in her bowl and food in her bowl outside the sliding glass door. Eventually she got a little bigger and a little stronger because I was feeding her all the time, and she wasn't really much of a stray because she lived on my deck, and she still does. But one thing we noticed, she's a boy. He's a boy. It's a boy cat. So now my friends have renamed Annie Andy. We had a talk last week, and they said, you know what? Since you've been here, we've watched you transition. And we watched our cat transition. Thanks, Jackie.